Come on, Mojang have to know what they're doing at this point. Right after the word Nautilus Leak, we've seen a huge uptick across Minecraft socials sharing posts about fish, dolphins, or the oceans in general, making many people say that clearly there's going to be an Update Aquatic v2. However, given the last ocean update was just 8 years ago, it could obviously use some love, but many people would say, why give a second update to oceans when so many other aspects of the game need the update more? Today I want to explore which parts of the game have received the most updates, the weird in-between updates that came between those, and indeed how the ocean should actually change, in my opinion. We're going to explore how different add-ons have approached this exact same question, and I think it's a lot of fun, but let's get started with this one, because hello, I'm IBX Toycat, and to talk about updates that have come twice, I think it's important to tell my story of the first time I was playing Minecraft. It was beta 1.2, and I played all the way through the night until the next day when beta 1.3 had come out. This is when beds were first added to the game, and they were truly revolutionary, some would say a bit too OP, but what's interesting is the bed you know today wasn't actually introduced until the World of Colors update in 1.12 years later. And what's interesting is this World of Color update itself changed the colors of things like beds and banners and lots of other Minecraft colored blocks before all of these blocks got another texture update all the way in 1.14. Actually, that was just 2 years later. And this is fun because this is something Minecraft have done a lot recently. We had a giant cave update in the Caves and Cliffs update, but then we had the Wild update right afterwards, and then we had the Tricky Trials just after that too, arguably updating the underground twice in a row after the self-professed Caves update. Indeed, when we talk about world generation, it gets even more deep than this because Minecraft world generation has updated a lot over time, but it was entirely reset in beta 1.8. That's when I started my Let's Play World and what a lot of people know as the start of modern Minecraft. But what's fun is they updated it hugely again in the update that changed the world, and that should have been the last one, but guess what? Caves and Cliffs Part 2, at least, decided to change everything about the world too, so they could introduce the new cliffs in a more effective and cohesive way. But this means that they have changed world generation so many times that there's actually a lot of features that went missing in between. This is something we'll come back to in the concept of in-between content, but for now I think it's important to note that Minecraft has updated many parts of the game twice, and sometimes even thrice, and this is actually kind of standard. But why is that? Well, let's think about skipping content to understand that, because skipped content can help us understand exactly why it is that some parts of the game get twice or thrice updates, but some get none, and I think the simplest way to explain skipped content is to think about Minecraft development patterns. It used to be that when a feature was added, let's take the Woodland Mansion for example, they had this belief that it was going to stay that way for the foreseeable future, but nowadays a lot of Minecraft updates are built with extensibility in mind. So take the Nether update for example. This is the first update where they put a bastion in the game filled with piglins, and then literally one update after, 1.16.1, they decided, let's add the piglin brute to this as well. Now you could argue that was just a piece of content they wanted in the main update and had to be delayed, but if we look at updates since then, we get far better examples, and so look at 1.17 for example, the Caves and Cliffs update. It added calcite, tuff, and copper all at the same time, and none of these three blocks could be turned into stairs. Obviously you could make copper stairs from a whole separate weird resource via the stonecutter, but technically speaking, none of these had stairs, and we assumed that, like in the past, there was some innate reason that if they weren't adding these, then that meant that they couldn't do it. In the same way we don't have boats made from the Netherwoods, there was some design reason that tough stairs and calcite stairs could not exist. However, they then proved that this wasn't true because 1.21 added not just tough brick stairs, technically a new ingredient that wasn't added yet, but also regular tough stairs and slabs as well, proving that the only reason it didn't exist was not design-based, but instead because they decided not to add it. And if they decided not to add it, you could argue it's because they thought they were making a tough update later, or because they just had a deadline, a time constraint. That update was quite famous for it, running past its deadline. So maybe it was just that they didn't get around to adding it at this time, but it still is a show that modern Minecraft has a lot of features which are designed with later updates in mind. The best example of this is the Ancient City portal. Many people look at the giant portal in the middle of the Ancient City and say, wow, that is obviously incomplete content. Why doesn't it go anywhere yet? It's clearly designed to be a portal, but it's been stated by many Minecraft developers that the goal is actually to have it be there for future Minecraft devs. So if they have an idea for a fourth dimension, so if they have an idea for what you could do with that portal, it now exists in everyone's world, and it's a part of the game that is built for extensibility. Whereas it's really hard to add, say, a new Woodland Mansion room or new functionality to that, and so in general, Minecraft has started to build with extensibility in mind, which lets us know that eventually there's going to be a calcite update, since there's no good reason for stairs and slabs not to exist besides time constraints or future update plans, and so the same could be said about basically everything that's come since the new Minecraft era, post 1.11 we could say. Is it possible that Minecraft planned the original update, Aquatic, with certain parts of this update not necessarily fully fleshed out so they could come back to them later? This is an interesting idea that we'll revisit when we talk about how oceans should be updated, but first I want to come into this weird world of in-between content, because I think ultimately by looking at it we can understand best why it is that updating things more than once actually does have a downside. And we're going to be doing this from some old 1.14 terrain gen. I actually found a way to get this to generate in modern Minecraft. This is 2025 by the way, and it comes from the video I was working on for tomorrow, and it's something I feel like I could talk about forever, old missing terrain generation, but I figured it would fit perfectly here because ultimately there are so many good reasons to have more than one update, whether we're talking about content that gets delayed, whether we're talking about content that just gets reimagined because the time it was relevant for is not now. There are so many good reasons to make content, but there are also bad ones, and let's talk about one of the biggest ones, and I think that would be this right here. This is in between Minecraft terrain generation for Minecraft Bedrock, from between the update that changed the world and the Caves and Cliffs update. There are world features which carried over perfectly, like say this river or these forests, but there are also features that didn't, like this plains biome. Plains biomes are much more hilly and mountainous. Actually, they kind of look more like this now, whereas previously they used to be very flat, and it was possible to find hundreds or thousands of blocks all on the same Y level like this. This isn't terraformed in any way, this is just naturally how it all spawned, and honestly, it's kind of cool, right? At least in my opinion. And the same is true for the old way that mountains worked. So before we had mountains in the game, as they were actually known, we had this extreme hills. Do you remember the extreme hills biome? It was the closest thing you got to a mountains, and it was just kind of higher up terrain that felt kind of strange in its own way, but it existed, like you can see right here. Also interesting, something that went away in 1.18 was the water lakes. When Minecraft was redesigning terrain, they figured, why have an extreme hills biome? We can have mountains. Why have perfectly flat Minecraft biomes when you're meant to flatten them? And for some reason they said water lakes, kind of dumb actually, and so these are mostly gone away, being replaced by water caves, which I guess are the same but with more function. But one of the most interesting quirks of this, whether you want to call this a bug or whether you want to call this something else, it's something I actually noticed in my Let's Play recently, and that is one of the long missing features of Minecraft. But if you go below the ground in 1.14 terrain, you'll see that it looks different, not just because it doesn't go below Y0, but also because when you look down here, you might find something interesting in certain caves. Obviously, where you find that is entirely up to chance, but if you find caves that are just the right light level, you might find these hanging out on them, but this was only up until 1.18. For 5 years now, you haven't been able to find randomly generating mushrooms, and yeah, it's been a bit of a spiral and a rabbit hole for me to realize how much of Minecraft goes missing, because when a better update comes out, you think to yourself, oh yeah, this is cool, this is better, this is a great replacement, but in some cases, people don't like a great replacement, I guess you could say. By the way, I think the same is true for, say, jungle biomes, which got some of them replaced with bamboo, and for dark oak forests, which are now partially replaced by pole oaks. Technically speaking, some of what you experienced has been diluted, but in some cases, the old content is just gone entirely. Oh, I'm in spectator mode, but I can see myself fully. Oh, that's strange, huh? That's really... I didn't know this could happen this way, but apparently it can. Anyway, speaking of things that can happen, I think now it's time to dive into what I think is perhaps the most interesting area of this video, which is, okay, Minecraft are going to update oceans potentially. To be clear, they have said, they haven't said anything directly, but the only thing we have seen is actually Nautilus. But if oceans, or if the update Aquatic was going to have a second part update, what would actually make the most sense? If we assume that it's worth removing some of the stuff now or updating it so that it doesn't generate now, what is it that could perhaps do best from this treatment? Great question, me, rhetorically, in a video where I talk to myself. Wow, you do ask the best questions. And so here is the best answers. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the Nautilus claim and how it fits into the drop system, and ultimately I think if I was going to be concluding what is likely to happen, I think it's going to be a major feature that can be described as Nautilus related, maybe a new crafting recipe, maybe a mob that is like a Nautilus, maybe something else entirely. However, I still do think that if there's going to be a major feature like that, there's likely to be some ocean drop changes, and so what could those be? Well, let's look at 3 separate for add-ons, Oceans Plus, Oceanic, and the fishing update to get a good idea as to what it could be. By the way, did you know, this section of the video is sponsored by the brand new Boss Blitz update. It's out right now and includes a new early game boss, the Lobster, which you can turn into lobster rolls. No, I'm not kidding. Yes, that is a lot of fun, and yes, you can do it right now via a free update on the marketplace to Boss Blitz 1.1. Anyway, thank you to Agent Mindstorm for creating that. A thank you to you for listening through my terrible ad read for myself. And now let's go right into the free ways that oceans can be updated. First, Oceans Plus. This takes the idea of basically saying, what if we update the oceans by giving you new ways to get around them? These boats are big and maybe ridiculous, you could say, but ultimately represent a problem in how transport works right now, which is that boats aren't really best on water, they're best on ice. So what if we just say the current boats are meant to be early water boats, but really we could have a later game water transportation method that could actually be as effective as boats are on ice, and boom, the submarines or the giant boats. This is a fun idea, but not necessarily my favorite by itself. The second idea comes from Oceanic, and it's the idea of adding lots of new life to the water. This is the closest fit to the word Nautilus, because if you've never looked one up, I'm very sorry, this is what they look like. It's horrifying, but a Nautilus is something that could be an undersea creature, and so what if they followed the lead of Oceanic and added a bunch of new fish to the ocean? This is also a fun idea, and I think actually a better fit for how oceans can be, because right now there are 4 types of fish as well as dolphins and turtles, but it does still feel like the oceans could have more life. And so what if there were specific fish you could find in specific places? What if the Nautilus shell came from the Nautilus fish in the same way that salmon can come from salmon? This is an extremely fun idea and would be a great way to farm those on top of what we already have, but it's also possible that Minecraft is thinking to themselves, well, how do you get Nautilus shells right now? Either by killing a drowned, and maybe in the future by killing a Nautilus, but actually they're not thinking about that instead. They're thinking about fishing, which is one of the ways of getting Nautiluses. Right now, fishing is one of the vastly under-updated parts of Minecraft, having had a major revamp with the aquatic update, but since then being mostly left alone. And so what if they changed fishing to have different rods with different drop tables, a la Pokemon I guess you could say, or what if instead we went for something along the lines of having far more rare and random and biome-based drops, because right now it's really fun that you have to go and fish in a jungle to get cocoa beans and bamboo. I just have to do that in my Sky Glue series, but wouldn't it be cool if there were different biomes with different rewards? This is what a fishing update could potentially promise, and although looking at this add-on, I've got to say, it really didn't deliver on a particularly great fishing experience. Fishing 2.0 probably needs a 3.0 update. I don't know why the fishing rod is coming from my head in these clips, but I do know that the concept of new fishing is inspiring to many, which is why this add-on was created, and maybe why fishing could receive a second update. But to kind of conclude each of these 3 ideas, I think that new boats are a really fun idea for the right type of person, and something that Minecraft have left a little bit of a trail on when it comes to the bamboo raft. This is a brand new type of wood made specifically from bamboo, and why is it entirely different to the other boats? There's no good reason yet, but they could make every boat unique and make some of them better in different situations. New boats is a fun idea, but I think the weakest of the 3. I think that new fish and new life for the oceans is something that appeals to many and seems like a great idea, but despite looking very good, especially when you use vibrant visuals, I think that this is a situation of quantity over quality. I think it would be better to get 1 good fish mob and then maybe a second good fish mob than to add 10 just for the sake of adding 10. And then when it comes to a fishing update, I think that this is the most fun idea for me as a challenge player, but I think for the average Minecraft player, the fishing system is plenty complicated as it is, with plenty detail and plenty of things to get, and although I would love some more niches and stuff like that, I think that Minecraft are getting better at designing for the average player, which means that I think that just like the boat update, it seems less likely. And so will Minecraft be adding a Nautilus mob and maybe some other undersea fish creatures to the game? Well, we don't know. We have to wait and see until Minecraft Live, which they have been and still are promoting quite heavily. Here is the newest thing they've done. They've got the super wide copper golem, and it says, please watch Minecraft Live September 27th. It looks like one of my thumbnails, but it's the official Minecraft admin promoting the event. That is when we're going to learn for sure. But I would say if I was going to make a guess, I think the fish is the best idea, and I do think that the idea of something happening underwater is what Minecraft wants us to think, But is that a mislead? Are they actually going to announce that 1.22 is coming and it's the end update? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of waiting to see, thank you for waiting to see all of this video to the end. Just a reminder, Boss Blitz and Toy Cat's Toolkit both received updates on the marketplace, and they're free for anyone who already owns them, as will all future updates be, and you can get them right now. Thank you to anyone who does. It supports the channel in some part. With that said, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.